You're going to lose your mics for just a bit. And we're doing this music intro. All right. Happy Friday. Hold on 1 second. What's this door here? Yeah. All right, Yuri, I'm bringing you in.
Welcome to Speak Sex. I am Eurydice. I am an artist and a writer from the island of Lesbos. I have written 3 books on female sexuality with Scribner, Virago Press. I have written the Sex Files column for magazines in New York for years. I am a multimedia artist with female sexuality, female objectification, dichotomy between our bodies and our minds, and how to liberate that from the dominant culture for my entire career. And the purpose of this podcast is to demystify, familiarize us with all things woman, sexual, all things forbidden, shameful, which are actually positive and beautiful and magical. So the more we talk about it and the more we speak it, I think the more easy and pleasurable and acceptable it becomes. So that's why I named it Speak Sex. I actually have girlfriends who are like, I want to send, share episodes with my friends, but I don't want to say sex. I'm like, that's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
I could have said speak truth. I could have said anything else. It's exactly that. That's the first step. Just say the damn word sex.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting me as your sex whisperer on Jolt Radio. Today's guests are 2 beautiful young women who I'm excited to hear from. Geovanna Gonzalez and Angel Garcia. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, Geovanna and Angel are artists who've just teamed up and created a new art collective here in Miami, Coin In, Coin Out. And I invited them to talk to us about themselves and the work, because I felt that they are sisters. Yeah. So I don't know who wants to start, and if you want to speak one at a time.
Right.
My question would be, tell me a little bit about your journey. The heroine's journey. each one. I want to hear that genesis. How one begins and how one comes to this moment where you have this collective, and how you present that, yourselves and the work in the world.
Okay, cool. Do you want to start? You want to hear about our personal practice first,
Or about the project?
or about the project?
Both. I want a narrative. I'm sure you have one.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe it would be good just to start with Coin In, Coin Out, and then we can work backwards and separately.
That's good.
In
Yeah.
some way. So yeah, it's a project that we both started most recently, but Angel and I have known each other for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
And yeah, we both have our own separate artistic practice, but then came together to build this sort of collective practice. And I guess how it started is that we were obviously interested in the same things, same topics, and so the space is called Coin In, Coin Out, which is actually a gambling term. And the space is in the 777 mall, which is in this kiosk, and it the whole thing got inspired by this slot that's available in the space. And so since the mall is quite old, all we have is speculations as to what was there.
before.
So I don't know. We were like, maybe.
What does it mean in gambling terms? Coin in, coin out.
Right. So
Slot machine.
Slot
Yeah, slot
machine.
machine.
Yeah. So it's basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically like a way for them to calculate the amount of money going in for the amount of money they can release. So it's like an input-output calculation.
Okay, so it's a house term. Like
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And are you super conscious of capitalism then, since you
Yeah.
chose that?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
how does that fit in with femme, being women in that space?
Right. I think.
Well, there is like, first our connection was, how is like the art market, like where transaction exists there. We started the project during Art Basel, and that really kind of messes with the market in Miami. So we wanted to really, I don't know, just kind of like touch upon how that is affected, like specifically in our city, and how Art Basel really restricts our community from, I don't know, like developing on its own. We're like constantly focusing on how to prepare for Art Basel, and whether or not a collector is going to pass by into our space and buy something or things like this. Instead of like building on the community, we're like constantly focusing on this like fair, basically.
Yeah, feedback and that idea that you need approval from an authority,
Right.
power,
And I think
gallery, all of that.
Yeah. And I think like also like on a very obvious sort of connection like to ideas of like sex and money is like sex is like one of the biggest like selling points, so it's just like, especially like being a female woman talking about ideas of transaction and commerce and monetary transactions, like I think that's like, at least in my mind, probably one of the first things you think about, right?
Yeah,
It's
true,
just, like,
true.
And also, like, as two women, how are people going to receive our project? Are they going to come and want to hang out with us because we're like two cute girls doing a project? Or will they really take us seriously as like a force in the art market or in the community? So playing with that also.
Yeah, and like challenging people's like perception of what we are doing, I guess. So I guess specifically for this installation, we did the Kissing Oracle.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
well, I guess we should start. So should we start with like the whole?
What is a Kissing Oracle?
Yeah.
What is a Kissing Oracle?
Well, maybe let's start, I guess, with like the name of the I guess the exhibit. It's 7 minutes in Neve. So Neve is heaven backwards, and we developed a multisensory installation that everybody can experience as a singular audience member for 7 minutes, sort of taking from the sort of like the kissing game, 7 minutes in heaven, and that like.
Do you know about this?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like a version of spin the bottle. You spin the bottle, and it points to another person, and the two of you technically go into a closet and are like left to your own devices for 7 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just like
I think I was in the other country when
when
that was age appropriate because I missed it.
Yeah. So there's like this expectancy that like something romantic and intimate happened within this 7 minutes
in the dark.
Yeah,
in
and
the
so
dark, in a
you're supposed
closet.
to like kind of confess when you come out, like what happened.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is like a kid's game.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
teenage-
that's why I missed it.
Yeah.
But that's really hard
Yeah.
to come out and say something about it. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just hard to be in that space in general because it's also like it's spin the bottle, so there's like this like anticipation of like you hope that it goes towards the individual that you're maybe like have a crush on at that time.
Yeah.
But it can totally go the other way, or it can be like the complete opposite.
Like you end up with somebody that you hate, or it's like super awkward, and like if you don't like it, 7 minutes is a really long time
It's
to
a
be
very
in a
long
closet with
time.
somebody.
Oh no, it's a very long time
Yeah.
period. Like
So-
you can definitely make babies, etc.
Yeah, for sure. So we were kind of like
Wow.
riffing on that.
Mhm.
And so if you decide to come into this space, so you can only, the windows are frosted, so you actually can't see what's inside of the space unless you enter and agree to this like 7 minute experience.
So you have a closet?
It's
like-
basically
it's
like a
kind of a
closet. It's like a
closet.
size,
The
the
space
space,
is
yeah.
Oh.
The space, it's a kiosk, so it's quite small. What is it, like 5 by 6 feet
Yeah.
or something like this.
So
It's pretty small.
who decides who makes out with whom?
No, so you actually go in the space by yourself. So it's
Yeah.
about your own intimate experience.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And
then you come out and speak to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people do like naturally. So there's like a soundtrack that's with it that we made together. There's like a whole art installation. There's the scent
There's
of
a scent. Yeah, it's literally multisensory. So
Yeah, that's lovely.
yeah, you're looking at things. You're smelling something. You can touch stuff. You're basically
Well,
you're
you can
allowed
touch
to be in
yourself.
it. You can
assume
also
you
touch
can
yourself. And
kiss
people,
yourself. So
Yeah.
to speak. Yeah.
People come out making that joke.
yeah. So
Yeah.
like also
Regularly.
Of course. Yeah.
we put like a surveillance mirror
Yeah.
inside the space. So then there's also a lot of people who are like, I felt like I was by
being
myself, but I
yeah.
also felt like I was being watched.
Yeah.
So there was like this like, I guess maybe slight paranoia that like maybe we had a camera outside the space, which we don't.
Yeah.
But
Right,
it's
like
just, like-
old Times Square peeping holes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
But
yeah.
you like really get a chance in those 7 minutes to like think about like your boundaries with like within that space, and also like I guess like with the objects or like with the artwork. Like you can decide whether or not you want to touch things. You can decide whether or not you're being watched, which you're not. But it really plays with your boundaries. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful.
And I think also to tying it back to like doing this during Basel is that there's like, I don't even know, like 26, I think around like 26 fairs that are going on at the same time in the city. And so it's more about like not necessarily looking at the work, but about just being seen in these spaces, right? So and so then like creating a space where there's art to look at and then asking for you to dedicate 7 minutes within that space. I think a lot of people walked out being like, wow, I realized that like I do not spend a lot of time looking at work.
Yeah.
You know? And so having that like understanding afterwards is another sort of experience that people go through.
Yeah, and I do like the idea of like collecting all the testimonies, you know, of how people felt there. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's, you know, like the quaking part.
Yeah.
Well, it's you know, it's important. I think that time, you know, opening up time, right, and opening up consciousness is revelatory. So that's what you're doing in your artistic space, but that's something also that's I think healing in like private space and you know, private life. And you touched on transactional sex. You know, I think that a lot of sex is transactional without the women being aware of it or conscious of it.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be monetary, right? Like it's
Right.
not, I think people automatically connect that, oh, it's like only transactional if it's monetary, but that's not true.
Yeah, like sometimes you even feel like you just like owe somebody sex because you're spending time with them.
Yeah.
Or there's an expectancy that like, hey, like I just paid for this, like I just took
Yeah.
you out, like we just did this, like
what do I get?
what do I get in return? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there is that kind of inherited, you know, instinct that the body can betray, should be, is expected to betray it for, you know, status or, you know, social favors. Or
Like your time is not valuable
exactly.
enough.
Yeah.
You
And
also
your
have to put
boundaries,
body,
right, and your boundaries are not strictly your own, you know, that there is like a whole social code that you have to go by, which then, you know, isolates you from your body completely. So you turn your own self into a thing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you couldn't do it. You know, you couldn't participate in this transactional way of exchanging, you know, intimacy.
Right.
And I think that the dating apps have made that even more pronounced,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
And incidentally, they're also like, what is everybody saying? I don't know too much about this, but like apps like or programs like Tinder and stuff, the way that they look and the way that you use them is really similar to slot machines and gambling. So like you have a very similar experience there, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, and like the expectancy is like, if I do this enough, I'll get something.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the same as a slot
like
machine.
trying your luck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, trying your luck. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's exactly like the slot machine. That,
Yeah, and I just
and it's
learned-
equally dehumanizing.
Exactly.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Right. So,
You learned what?
yeah. Oh, and also I recently learned that there's you have the ability within like an app like Tinder to actually upgrade and pay like an extra like $5 or something a month, so that you can have more opportunities of like swiping, because I guess there's
Yeah.
like a limit. There's like a cap per day, which is like,
Or you can like unswipe, like
Yeah,
if
it's
you
just,
like
like-
fucked up and like
What does this swiping culture
yeah.
do?
Yeah. I mean, it's
so
pretty
empty.
deep. Yeah, it's pretty empty, dehumanizing
Exactly.
in a lot of ways.
It's so superficial. How
Yeah.
can you tell from like if you edited photos anything about a human?
You can't.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. I mean, like, to each their own, right? Like,
Right.
at the end of the day, and I
Oh
think,
yeah, Twitch. Their own.
and ultimately, like, I do know people that are in relationships from using dating apps,
That's
so,
true.
like, I don't want to completely, like, discredit that, but at
Right.
the same time, I think it's, like, important to go within those spaces and be conscious about what you're doing and what
Mhm.
you're interacting with, and I think a lot of that ties back to this idea of, like, time. So, like, do we give ourselves enough time
right.
to reflect on these decisions, to,
Right.
like, say, like, I don't need to give you an answer right now, or even
Yeah.
yourself, or whatever. And I think, especially now within, like, the digital era, things are happening so rapidly and quickly, like, we don't take the time to process things.
Mhm.
So that's,
Sure.
like, I think something to be conscious about and aware about. Yeah.
Yes, totally. Yeah, just take your time. There's, like there should be a lot of time between all the highs. This
Mhm.
is like, the high and low non-stop is pulling you away from yourself.
Yeah.
From your core. You need time to figure out who you are, who you're becoming, what you like, what you might like more that you haven't even heard about yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So time and consciousness and sobriety might be nice too. Because a lot of this, a lot of this happens while you're like drunk or drinking, or which again is alienating from who you are. Like,
Right.
kind of,
It's another boundary.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also too, talking about the concepts behind the space, sort of the key things that we're exploring are ideas of like luck, vulnerability, intimacy, and like
Yeah.
also like expectations. So like, what is your
Interesting.
expectation
Right.
when you're walking into a space? Like, what is quote unquote, what is an art space? What's the expectancy of like what a gallery should look like?
Yeah.
So we also are like veering away from like calling our space a gallery, or
Yeah,
trying
so-
to say that they're not exhibitions, like,
Yeah.
but saying it's a kiosk, and like finding our own language to use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, developing
yeah.
a vocabulary that just like really challenges that all
Mhm.
that transactions.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
because
a lot of performance art is about that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the space primarily is like we want to use the space for performance, so we're like really pushing the like the limits of like our audience's understanding of what a performance actually is.
Yeah.
So every little thing plays a part in that. It's
Mm.
developing
Yeah.
slowly, but
Right.
yeah.
Well, a performance primarily, going back to time, is about holding stillness.
Mhm.
Basically anything you can do if you do it naked and without moving long enough becomes a fascinating performance.
Yeah.
And that's it. Just, I mean, if you can do it for like a week continuously without covering,
Yeah.
again, it's about that consciousness, putting yourself in like aware space,
Right.
instead of like reactive space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's like maybe a good segue to talk about the kissing
kissing
oracles,
oracles,
because
yeah.
that's
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's performative.
I love that name.
Yeah, it's
thanks.
interactive, and then
And it's momentary.
yeah, exactly.
Which is
Mm.
really interesting.
Mm.
And we've done it a few times now.
Yeah, we've done it 3 times.
Yeah.
So what's the oracular part?
So the oracular part is, well, I guess we can go through exactly what happens. So like Gio mentioned, the space has this window which we fogged, and the window has a slot in it, where like we assume like, transactions happened. And so there is somebody, a psychic, it's usually me, in the space. In the space. And well, we have these business cards that have our business cards have a blank space in the back for like writing messages. And what happens is an audience member comes and puts a business card through the slot, and I'm just gonna, and maybe I'll just call them the oracles, and then the oracle gives them a lipstick and a tissue, and you put and their hand through the slot. So you put the lipstick on and you kiss their hand, and so the oracle will transfer the lipstick mark from their hand onto the business card and write an intuitive message. So the oracular aspect is like, I guess whether or not that message or like the sort of the oracle or like the medium is like giving you a message that is relevant or that resonates with you in some way. And then,
So the message comes to oracle because of the kiss,
Because of the kiss.
the lipstick
the
mark.
So the lipstick mark, the
So the
pressure
shape
of
of
the
your
kiss,
lips
shape
and the
of your
type
lips,
of the way you kiss.
the pressure, the moisture content, whatever.
It's also
That's
individual, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like per that's what makes it also a very unique experience. Is that like it's different for each person.
It's different every
Right,
time. Yeah.
and it could be different for each person each time.
Yeah.
Depending on your energy at that moment.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah. Oh, I wonder if somebody has done it more than once.
Yeah, they have.
They have?
So
That's really funny.
I stand on the other side, and I I sort of guide people through the process, and also invite people to come and do it because I think there's you either get like two very extreme responses, which is like, yeah, I'm super down. I don't know what it is, but I want to do that, or it's the other one where they're like, that's too weird. Like I can't.
So you're like the handler.
I'm like
and
the handler.
She's the psychic.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like pimping the psychic, kinda.
Yeah. I would rather say like I'm more like a hype person.
Hype person.
No, I like the madam.
Yeah.
Like spiritual madam.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she is the vessel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
I love it. I really like it. It's really nice.
It's been great. It's been like some people have cried. Some people have like some people also like when I'm doing it, I literally have no recollection.
Yeah.
Or like I have no idea what I'm doing. It's like I basically
well, that's the only way to do it.
Yeah. So I listen to this Ramones song over and over again. I Want to Be Your Boyfriend.
Oh, I know the
so
song.
I just listen to that song, just play it repeatedly and like go into like a disassociative state. And I'll come out and people are like, oh, I was the one with the caterpillar. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't know. But people will like, sometimes when I talk to them when they come out, they actually realize that they do have, like through talking about the message, if they don't have a connection with it, they actually come to a realization that they do. So like, I guess that's an element of time too, like sitting with a message that like maybe like makes you uncomfortable and you don't know why, and then like really accessing that feeling and building a connection with the message.
Yeah, and I think like there also are people that they're just like, this is so spot on, like who's behind there, like, or like, you know, they think like it's almost impossible for this to be like an intuitive practice.
But we all have, I mean, it happens to be you, but honestly anyone who can empty themselves of themselves and not be themselves as like, you know, their mom or their friends or their dogs know them, they're gonna be in that state, and they're, you know, and it's a wonderful high to be without self, you know, however briefly, and just download. And I mean, I call it the orgasmic state because I go into trance, you know, to do my work often, and it's the same as, you know, the final state, you know, of orgasm after all has been done, when you no longer know who you are or how you got there, and you kind of unite with, you know, the greater, I don't know, humanity throughout time.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's wonderful, coming up with the lipstick and the lips.
When the kiss is really nice too, because it's like, I don't know, it's sort of like, I don't want to say like it's this like obligatory intimate exchange, but it sort of is. Like we think about our mouths so much and like kissing so much, and how like who we do that with, like what we're allowing when we're kissing someone, and like also the style with which you kiss is really personal. So it's like if somebody is like willing enough to like kiss,
give themselves in that kiss,
like that's really nice.
It was I mean, it was a pleasant surprise to see how many people were excited about doing it.
It's also a way to pay homage, you know? So in like traditional experience of oracle, you know, the one who asks the question comes and pays homage in some way, either does you know, libation, or does sacrifice, or in some way gives something. You know, you give a token, you give a coin, or coin in, coin out. So that kiss is the homage that brings, the reward or the message
Exactly.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess to continue just so we kind of do like an art installation that's like all sensory, and then we have like at least like 2 programmings that come along with it. So the last programming that we did or have is a VIP party.
Yeah.
So the VIP party is also, kind of talking about like consumerism, but also like really, I think Basel is so heavy like in the air during this time of the year that it's impossible to ignore. So we just like, let's just acknowledge this beast right now.
Yeah.
And so we talked a lot about how these
like having access.
Having access, like a lot of what's happening around us is like people trying to get into a VIP party, and like it's just to be on the list, and everyone is VIP, and everyone wants to be at the front of the line.
Usually the VIP parties are really not very different from the VIP like status that you can get if you go into a fair.
Yeah,
it's,
no, VIP is not. It's not. Yeah. Definitely.
So we wanted to create like this idea of, we'll talk about ideas of access and accessibility and exclusivity.
Yeah.
Because it is like a very exclusive thing. So it's like there's like Basel that's like not originated in Miami. Like it's not like they hand out an invitation to like local artists. Like you can come to this, VIP
We're here
events
to
and
trash your city.
Yeah,
and have
exactly.
Fun.
But it's for all of the outsiders. It's not geared.
But also like our Basel is not at all like the original Basel. The original Basel is very much geared toward the art, and ours is geared toward the party.
Yeah.
It's just vastly different.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Basel a couple of times, and there is no comparison.
Yeah.
They have like one fair.
Yeah.
And there's one place where you all hang out and party.
Right.
And that's about it, which is like a big restaurant bar.
Yeah.
None of all of our, kind of like Latin excess, which I think is why people come much more for the party and the scene and not really for the art.
Yeah.
And I think as artists, if we become aware of it and just say, that's what it is, I get it, okay. Then you don't get caught up in this, I want to be asked, I want to be shown, I want to be,
you get caught up in the rejection.
The rejection, all of that. Instead, you're like, oh, it's something that has nothing to do with my practice at all.
Right.
It could be like ultra or something else that comes to town, and it's a big party and it goes, and maybe you go out and hang out with people, but you don't have to feel that
like anxiety
exactly, of like, are you counted, are you are you accepted,
right?
And I know when it first came, I actually did like almost a 6-year practice, which I called Occupy Art Basel. That was back, with the Occupy, Occupy movement that just vanished. But it was basically, it was the same thing. And for me, it was just a way for personal catharsis, to find my way to liberate myself from the whole thing. And it worked, and it succeeded, and I have been like so healthy and happy ever since.
Yeah.
I don't even pay attention to, to the circus of it.
Right. Yeah, so I guess like basically what we created, what seemed like a VIP party.
Yeah.
So we had like, you can RSVP for the party. During the time like at the 777 mall, like there's like a flood of people that are coming in.
Yeah.
So like we had these tokens.
Yeah, these like
tickets,
like raffle tickets.
Yeah, so I just went around and gave out the raffle tickets, but told people like, hey, you want to come to our VIP party?
Yeah.
They're like, sure. I'm like, okay, here's this ticket. So, but I would do it like in a way like it was like an exclusive thing. So it was like, that was like a very like performative segment of it. And then, the way that you would have to enter into the space is that you would have to put your ticket through, write your name down. So there was like this like other partial thing that always happens within like VIP parties is like, is your name on the list?
Is your name on the list?
Like there's like steps to be able to even get in.
Yeah.
So creating that same sort of formula, and then when you came in, it was just a group of us hanging out. So it's just like we didn't have any music.
We didn't have any music because there was so people play so much music at the mall when there's an event, but yeah, you would write your name on the ticket and put it through the slot, and actually it was really funny because like Gio would come out and open the door and be like, I'm looking for like,
so and so's name.
Right.
So I would just like slightly stick my head out so they still couldn't see what was happening inside, and like just call their name, like, okay, come in quickly, and then like the next person would do it, and then there would be like a line, and then like a friend like downloaded an app to make like these sort of like party noises, like Angie.
Oh yeah, that's right, like the burr, 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 burr.
Yeah.
What was that called?
So then it like actually became a really big thing. So it's like essentially
it was a serious party.
Yeah.
It was packed.
It was packed. It was like sardines
in there. People were like cheersing above everyone's heads, like
people
taking
would leave
shots
and
from
come
bottles,
back and then bring bottles of champagne and like so it seemed like it was exclusive, but like literally anybody could come in.
Anybody could come in.
Anybody can come in.
Right.
So sort of like flipping it on its head, so to speak, was
but
the
it
whole
does
idea.
prove the point.
Yeah.
Because you put the word VIP and people will travel.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like it was a moment for people to reflect of like, oh, like why am I so attracted to this word or this like so-called experience? And then like creating the space where it was like you're just hanging out with your friends and you know with good people and probably gonna meet amazing people and like this is a good experience, you know, as opposed to trying to be a part of a particular crowd of people, status quo, whatever it may be.
Well, and also like literally being so close to the people in the space, like we were all touching.
Well, because it's so intimate,
Exactly.
So we're all touching. It's like actually so much
it's
more.
It's the kissing
than,
closet.
Like, it's the kissing closet.
Turned into VIP party.
Yeah.
It's not live.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, so it was inevitable that like you were gonna talk to people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and smell them and touch
everything.
them and the whole thing.
It got really hot in there. I still recognize people from the party. I'm like, we were there. We were close.
Yeah, we were close. Okay, so Gio, tell me a little bit about your own personal story. You know, where you were born, and also I'm interested to touch on your tattoo work. A little bit. Berlin, Coven.
So I was born in Los Angeles. I also went to school out there. After I graduated from college, I was more than ready to get out of the city. And so I, on a whim, decided I was going to move to Berlin, and I just sold everything that I had. I just got rid of everything, and I'm like, there is no such thing as the right time. The right time is when you make the decision.
And how was your German at the time?
Not good. Like, but I think...
But you had some.
Yeah, I mean, no, I, like, didn't have any.
Okay.
But, like, Berlin is particular in the sense that everybody speaks...
Very cosmopolitan.
Yeah, exactly. I shouldn't say everybody, but there's a lot of people speak English. So I knew, or at least could gauge that it could be a good city, European city for me to start in, to think about, like, living and sort of developing my practice and all of that. So I was like, well, at the very least, I can start here. Fill it out, and once you're in Europe, you can like fly around, and it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can, still explore all those other places that I'm interested in, and it'd be an easy transition. And I ended up falling in love with Berlin and staying there for 4 years. Like the first 2 years that I was there, I hadn't even came back home and like didn't even blink an eye. Like it was just like 2 years had passed by, and I had to like consciously think about like I should probably go back home and like
see my mom.
Yeah, exactly, but that's how I guess impactful the experience was, and like the city itself was for me and my practice. And so yeah, I honestly think that living in Berlin really has shaped who I am in a lot of ways, and has given me the ability to work through my ideas, but like my identity in a very accepting and comfortable way. Whereas like I think if I would have stayed in a city like LA or moved to New York or any of these like dreamy art cities, I wouldn't have had the access to just practice my stuff, practice and fail and succeed and collaborate with people, because it kind of Berlin is one of those places where if you have an idea and you want to do something, you just do it. You know, it's not about asking for permission. It's not about like waiting for someone to invite you to do it. You're just like, go for it, you know? So that was very helpful in a lot of ways. So while I was in Berlin, I also started showing with Coven Berlin, which is a feminist queer collective. And they do more alternative exhibition style programming where it's an exhibition, but they're not interested in creating like a white cube space. It's about like the dialogue, it's about the workshops that they're offering. There's like performances, it's very much about like an interactive experience, and also utilizing art as like a tool to talk about these topics and issues and like build a community. So I feel really grateful to have been invited to show with them like time and time again, and to build like strong bonds with these people there. So, and they've just been super supportive, and they just are, like, in general, like in every shape and form of the way.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I love the word coven.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's, in my opinion, that's where most of like woman power
For
is
sure.
still held.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and
it's
that's
another one of those
philosophy.
words. You know,
Yeah.
I could have said speak coven,
Right.
instead
Yeah.
of speak sex, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and clearly, like, that's like the groundwork of their collective is this word, and like how much it embodies and how powerful it is. And I think it is about empowering people.
Yeah, empowering people, especially women, and
Women,
and also honoring our ancestors and you know their knowledge that's been suppressed, and you know, in a sense their martyrdom, you know, because they were demonized, burned at the stake, etc. For healing and you know trying to survive within nature. So yeah, I think that as you know, women in the current moment and feminists, it's good to look back and acknowledge, you know, our foremothers, and also it's a good opportunity to take a moment away from like social media and the internet and Big Brother, big tech, and you know feel ourselves as part of the natural world. So and I think now more than ever, you know, we, especially women, you know, birth givers, you know, need that relationship with Earth. And also, you know, again, sexually, I think it's it can be very healing, because there is no better way to figure out who you are sexually and what pleases you and what makes you grow than being in nature. You know, away from all the labels and, you know, the given, the dominant labels, at least, you know, and then you can come up with your own, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Coven specifically, and also with my own individual work, as well as like probably Angel's individual work, like a lot of it is about the sort of push and pull between, like, at least for me personally, I'm not necessarily trying to detach myself from what's surrounding me. So it's like, you know, I do live in like the digital era, you know, like, and that is a part of who I am in my practice, and it does influence my work. And I think it's like about figuring out how to find like a balance between those things, so I'm not like extremist in the sense of like completely detaching myself. And I think that like within like the programming of Coven, there's a lot of conversation around that, but also a lot of conversation specifically about ideas of sex and what is acceptable. And like you know, like there's been many times where there's artists that are also sex workers that are a part of the exhibition, and that for some people is really controversial. So it's like, okay, like, well, but why? Like, let's have that conversation. Like, let's open up the platform so that it's not so alienated to us as to how we think about these different things, you know, or think about what I guess normal sexual behavior is.
Today, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it just came to me. I'm driving here, and my phone says breaking news, and I look on my phone, of course, instead of driving. And the 77-year-old owner of the Patriots was caught, like, getting into a strip club or a Chinese massage parlor or something. Like, he was trying to pay for a hand job.
Yeah.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
I don't even know the poor guy's name.
Wow.
But, I mean, that's how fucking repressed and Puritan we still are.
Yeah.
Dude, like, he's 77. I would think this is super exciting that he's still interested in, like, getting out of his comfort zone and whatever, paying somebody to give him pleasure.
Yeah,
Right.
just like let the poor guy get an HJ.
And no, shame.
Right.
The shame.
God.
Like, let's broadcast it. I mean, it was one thing to have, like, the actor, just saying, that was breaking news too.
Yeah.
He staged his own hate crime. I mean, yes, but it's not breaking news,
No.
And now this, it's just, it's all about shame and gossip, at the lowest level of, like, the neighborhood, talking about people,
Right.
that's our breaking news.
Yeah.
We don't know, it's not about politics. So, I don't know, to me, the idea that it's, like, the 21st century.
Yeah, that, like,
and
sex
this
is
is
so
how we-
taboo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, like, paying for a hand job.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we live in another planet, I guess, but this was like the New York Times.
Oh my
Right.
God.
I mean, I think that it's obvious that a lot of ideas around, like, sex and companionship and relationships is still very much embedded into religion and Christianity. So it's, I think it's, like, takes a time to separate yourself from those notions, even if you're not, like, a following,
You're like a practicing Christian. or
exactly,
something.
like, it's still so
So, like,
much
deeply embedded in our subconscious.
exactly, yeah, in our culture.
Yeah.
And so there is judgment that gets passed because of that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Angel, tell us a little bit about your story. Where you from? How you became an artist? How you identifying this world?
I was born in Miami. I grew up here.
Local.
I lived in New York for a few years, but I've been back for a while now, like 4 years. And I always practiced art in one way or another, except for when I was in college. I studied literature. And then when I came back to Miami, I had an apprenticeship. So it's sort of like a tattoo apprenticeship. I was getting tattooed in New York, and I guess my way to get back into being creative was, I was really into the culture, or I was interested in the culture rather. I don't necessarily agree with sort of like the practice, how people practice, or like mainstream tattoo culture is sort of weird.
Well, it's like
how is that?
male
Yeah,
dominated.
it's male dominated. It's a
Yeah.
little misogynistic. It's a little bit harsh, I guess. Well, I got an apprenticeship. I did the thing. I worked at a bunch of shops, and I had a hard time because I worked really hard. I think I developed a style very quickly. So my base is in American traditional tattooing, but like very quickly I started incorporating like queer bodies and like sex toys into my illustrations, and that was really unnerving to a lot of people, specifically like young men that I was working with. And I got a lot of like I got a lot of shitty feedback, and I was like bullied, and people would like mess with my flash, or like
Wasn't there an incident where some dude just completely
there's this guy
drew all over her flashbook, her sketchbook?
there was this guy at a
Wow.
shop. The last shop I worked at, which I now have a private studio, the last shop I worked at, this guy had been like harassing me I only worked there for like 4 weeks. But this guy had been harassing me, and I took a walk in, whatever. I did like actually a pretty cool tattoo, and he was what I assume was very jealous. He was upset that I took this client. He like threatened to beat me up. And then I just decided that that would be my last day there, but I accidentally left my sketchbook or my book of Flash at the studio, so I went back the next morning to pick it up, and he was there. It was really awkward, and I got in my car, and I was like, I feel like I gotta look through my book and see if they fucked it up. Like, I had this feeling that they did, and I looked through it, and they drew a bunch of like dicks on my pin girls, which was actually like
vandalism.
But it was actually also like sort of I don't know, is that he sort of helped me. I mean, like it was great. I was like, how did you know that I would actually like this?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I was not, while I was offended that he like touched my things and like, you know, ruined some of my drawings, I actually like, I don't know, it just like opened up a whole other avenue of illustrations for me. And like most of my clients are queer, and that's really special. That's something that I like take a lot of pride in. And a lot, like I said, a lot of the bodies that I'm drawing are like androgynous or like intersex, and I don't know, it's really great.
It is really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you find that you find yourself in the same kind of like psychic or intuitive space when you work on a body?
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, it's definitely like, and I'm sure Gio can attest to this or like relates, but like besides the fact that you're like really close to somebody, physically close to somebody, and touching their body, when you're actually like in the process of tattooing, like kind of like you're kind of meditating.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
just like if like,
right.
and a lot of people experience this, I'm sure, when they're drawing or painting. Like in all the art that I do, that's sort of my meditation.
Right.
So in the moment when I'm tattooing somebody, it's like it could be done in like, it feels like it's a second long.
Yeah.
You know, you just like really dive into the moment, into like the motion and like the intensity, you know, like it's also
the intensity.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
it's
you
also, like,
have to concentrate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
I think it's a beautiful
more
thing
than-
for people to
the
also
stakes are
trust you.
higher.
yeah, the
Yeah.
stakes are really high. It's actually very stressful. I mean, like if I mess it up, I can't take it back.
Exactly. Yeah.
And a lot of these people are like, a lot of my clients, while I do have a hard time getting people to, you know, want or like get the tattoos that I design, a large portion of my clients are specifically coming to me because they heard that my practice is alternative.
Nice.
So they know that I'm going to be more caring and more attentive and like considering boundaries in a different way, or considering care and like intimacy within that space in a particular way. And you know, they're very vulnerable to me. A lot
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, as we said in the beginning, well, you know, the receiving body has to be in stillness. So it's a meditation for them.
Right.
And you know, you can take advantage of that, you know, play the music or however, and help them enter that state, because usually a client may not consciously be in that state, but when you are, I feel like there is an exchange of energy, you know, you give and you receive, that's, you know, intense.
Right. I also think that something that I appreciate that like tattoo artists like Angel and myself and a few other people that we know is that even though someone is giving you permission to do a tattoo, let's say on their stomach, like to still be conscious about like, hey, I'm gonna move my hand here. Is it okay if I you know, like put my hand here, you know? And like realizing like just because this is again like a transactional exchange of like wanting something, you know, they want a tattoo, I think doesn't mean you have full liberty over their body, you know?
I don't think, I mean, yes, it is transactional, but again, for me, as a person who gets tattoos, it's much more of a spiritual exchange.
For sure. I mean, I don't
so
think
the money
for us
is a little like that homage, you know, you give the money in token, right? But, I mean, the artists who have, you know, written on my body, I feel very, you know, spiritually and energetically close and intimate with. It's a unique relationship, but it's real, you know. And in a sense, I carry a little bit of them, you know, in my DNA, in my, you know, epidermis. They're there. So we're kind of like all together, and you know, in energy. So I think it's a, you know, very very transformative or transmogrifying, experience, especially for the one who receives it, if they do it in consciousness.
And I think that's why going back to who's doing it and the space that you're in is so valuable and important, right?
Yeah,
because,
it's all important to think about in advance.
Yeah, because you're not gonna have that same experience in every space, And also, there is no comparison, and that again takes us back to sex. It's kind of like having sex when you're drunk and it's impulse versus, finding the right person, finding the right space, and getting consciously in that, that mode. Yeah.
Really nice mode.
Yeah, I think the tattoo thing is also another thing. Many of all the many things that Angel and I share in common in our practice. In Berlin, I started doing stick and poke tattoos. With a friend of mine called Mel Jones, and so we called ourselves Girls That Poke, which is definitely like a play on words. It was more about one. I was always interested in the practice, but and then people started to ask me to do it for them and stuff, and I do very much value the intimacy that happens and the trust that happens, and also doing it stick and poke is something that takes so long, depending on what you want. So it's a slower process, so you're really spending, and you feel each and every poke that
because it's the original the tools.
Exactly. So I mean, I very much think it's an intimate space, and I value those people that allow me to do that, and I trust them, and it's also doing it in my home and not necessarily in a shop, and
that too comes from ancient practice, spiritual scarification, shamanistic practice. That's especially the Pope. That's where it finds its origin. And then there is that whole prison history in in prison culture, which I think validates it in altogether other way. Well, thank you for coming. This went by so fast.
Yeah, super fast.
You have to come back.
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't even touch on half the things I wanted to talk about. But
we can do a part 2.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2.
I'm down.
Yeah. So thank you for listening. We're gonna go on a short break and come right back with my next guest. And thank you for trusting me as your sex whisperer. Bye.
Bye. That went by really fast.
Yeah.
Right? That was so good.
It's good.
I'm
It's,
looking, I'm like,
it
it's
usually goes
3:05.
by really quick,
Yeah.
It's a good sign.
Where is Alex? I mean, if she doesn't come, we'll just continue. I feel like I saw someone come in. Do you know Alex?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love her. She's so funny.
I know.
She's so cool. I was actually on her. She interviewed me for Sunday Painter.
Yeah. We're doing that after.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
She was next door to me at Fountainhead forever.
Oh, cool.
That's cool. Right next door. This thing died because it said no storage, and I didn't know what to do.
Oh.
Maybe you can. I tried to delete all of my photos because I don't need them here.
Sure.